Okay, well, let's start the ARC Elections webinar. First of all, I want to thank everyone for taking the time today to join us. I know everyone has extremely busy schedules, and I truly appreciate you taking the time to view our presentation and demo for the ARC Elections webinar. Many of you may know or may not know who ARC is. From a IT consultancy perspective, we've been in business for 20 years. In fact, this year is our 20th year in business, and we're very proud of that fact. We've been exposed to several different verticals, clients, and projects during that time period. And today we just simply wanted to share the knowledge of our newest training platform called ARC Elections. We feel it's great to share this not only with clients, with our prospects and partners, as everyone always has a need to know a little bit more about training, because that simply transcends across all verticals, including the elections jurisdictions. A few housekeeping topics here today. If you can just keep your phones on mute, just so we can avoid any unnecessary feedback throughout the presentation. And today we are targeting the presentation and the webinar to be 1 hour long, so approximately 45 minutes for the presentation and demo, and then Q&A after for 15 minutes. We want to be respectful of everyone's time. And there's a couple of ways to send questions to us. Obviously, if you're logged on your side panel on the Go to Training session, you can just simply type in your questions and it'll be captured and we will address it at the end, or if there's time even during the presentation. Or even at the end, just unmute your phone and ask some questions, and we will go from there. Sahil, if you could advance the slide. So today's agenda, fairly straightforward. We want to do introductions of the team that will be presenting today, and introductions of ARC Business Solutions, brief background of our company, and then lead into some of the challenges of the traditional learning as it relates to the elections jurisdiction, and it can be transcended even into multiple verticals, and then how ARC Elections really kind of satisfies and attempts to satisfy some of those challenges within the traditional learning. And then that'll lead into our demo, and the demo is going to be broken up into two essential parts. One is the end user app. This is the application that the election workers will see. And then secondly, and even I think more importantly, is the management dashboard. As workers are conducting training and completing the training, management obviously has to know if they're doing that. But this is also the area where the content is created as well. So it's very powerful for the end client. And lastly is the Q&A session, so we can tackle a lot of the questions that come about through today's presentation. So introductions, hopefully you can see our faces there on the screen. So again, my name is Mike Ouden. I'm Business Development Director with ARC Business Solutions. Very proud to say that I've been with ARC for 10 years. I live in Calgary. I work out of the Calgary office, so I look after accounts here in Calgary, and also run our Regina office. And I'll let Sahil and Klaus introduce themselves.
Thanks, Mike. My name is Sahil Parikh. I'm working out of the Toronto office with ARC, and I'm the Mobile Marketing Associate as well as Content Specialist, so I'll be helping to take you through the demo today. And I've been with ARC for 18 months now, and it's been really great. Excited to be here. I'll pass it on to Klaus.
My name is Klaus Rubba. I've been doing software development for over 20 years. About 10 years of those have been with ARC Business Solutions in Edmonton, currently as Director of the Mobile Division, and I was the lead architect of this ARC Elections platform that we're demonstrating today. That's it.
Perfect. So just want to give a brief background of ARC Business Solutions. Some of you may know us, as I said, and some of you may not. So just want to take a quick moment to explain who we are as a company. So we are an IT consulting company. We have offices in Edmonton, Calgary, Regina, and Toronto, Edmonton being the head office for ARC. And within our offering, we have a number of different divisions or practices that we bring to the marketplace. First is our system or solution delivery practice. So whether our clients are looking for enterprise-wide technology to be implemented, or even from a divisional standpoint, we can do that with the staff that we have. And even more importantly as well, we have our management consulting area. Clients and prospects that we talk to, they always have some end goal of what they envision for a technology and what they're trying to satisfy. And from our management consulting area, we can kind of link that technology and process to that end goal. Second is our information or enterprise information management division. That division has been with us for over 13 years. Very proud of that division. In fact, that's the division that got me into ARC as well. We've partnered with OpenText just recently, and prior to that with EMC, and very proud to say that we've done a number of different implementations with Captiva and Documentum, but we're very much vendor agnostic. We have a SharePoint practice, and we can implement pretty much any type of technology when it relates to EIM. But much like solution delivery, with our ERM practice, we have the strategy consultants as well. Again, most clients have some sort of EIM technology. It's really how do they want to use that. And so we just got some great people within our staff that can do that consulting. Third is our managed services area. More prevalent in Alberta, we have our network operations center that's in our head office in Edmonton. Really, we cater to more small to mid-sized organizations, so really looking at software and infrastructure, but with the wrapper of end-to-end coverage and with predictable costs. So we can have remote monitoring and remote support, or we can dispatch our technicians. So it's really kind of tailored to what our clients are looking for. Mobile solutions, so this is the division that Klaus heads, and you met Klaus in the last slide. We can do custom development pretty much on any platform, or we have just simply developed product that exists on the Google Play Store and the Apple Store as well, or we've developed configurable platforms, and one of the platforms is what we're going to talk about here today is our collections. So very proud of that division, what Klaus has done. And last is the training division. So we kind of have two different flavors there. We can do online training or classroom training. And because we're an IT consulting company, we can do training from a technology perspective, or we can do soft skill training, career development or conflict resolution, etc. At the end of the day, it's really what our clients are looking for from a training perspective, and we can wrap that up into a package. I'm more than happy to answer any questions about ARC. We've got our URL web address at the bottom, arcbus.com, if you're looking for further information. So this is just a splash page of some of the customers that we've done and worked with successfully over the last 20 years. And it's not just related into the offices that I spoke about here in Canada, but really throughout North America. Very proud of the different types of projects that we've done based on the offerings that I described. And at the bottom right-hand side, you'll see the logo of Elections Saskatchewan. We worked with them at the tail end of last year and into this year. And if you want to advance the slide, Sahil, very lucky and very proud to have Jordan Arndt. He's the Director of IT with Elections Saskatchewan, provide a testimonial of the work that we've done with Elections Saskatchewan, or with ARC Elections. They've rebranded it. They went live with our solution last month. It's called Take Part. But it was just an absolute joy to working with Jordan from the technical perspective, but also working with Bonnie from the operational perspective, because it's really their division that owns this particular app. So just wanted to share this because we really take the client reference very sincere when we're working with our clients here at ARC. So the potential challenges with the traditional elections training process, and I'm going to use Elections Saskatchewan as kind of the example. And for those of you on the line, as you're working through your jurisdiction, I'm assuming it's very similar. But with Elections Saskatchewan, I mean, The first is onboarding a significant amount of resources for a short period of time. So the example here is Elections Saskatchewan onboards 12,000 resources for a general election. That is a lot of people that have to be brought up to speed with the knowledge of what that general election is for. So a lot of the challenges really relate back to the classroom training. A lot of time, a lot of scheduling that needs to be involved in getting these people up to speed, and there's a cost to that. But when you look at point 3 from a geographic coverage, that training doesn't exist in one city or one area within the province or within that area. There has to be multiple locations, so that just adds to the cost. And it's not just the financial cost, it's the time of everybody included. And one of the other challenges that we found is as you're going through this training and as you're going through the training from an election standpoint, sometimes there is low attendance. So you're doing your very best to get people out into the training, but maybe there's conflicts or of whatever nature, and attendance can be low. And so that creates a challenge. And then the 5th point is retention. So whether it is an elections jurisdiction or really any type of vertical, upwards of 50% of retention can be lost from a classroom training, even a couple of days after the classroom training. So when you look at from an operational perspective from a jurisdiction with elections, they're asking themselves, was that value delivered, right? And because you want to put your best foot forward in delivering a great general election or even by-election or even a census. If you can advance the slide. So what is ARC Elections? Well, at its granularity, it is a training and communication tool. As you're looking at adding and all these resources to your platform for the general election or by-election, this is a supplemental tool to the training, to the traditional training tool. And I think that's one of the messages that we want to get across. This may not be a substitute, but it's definitely a supplement to the traditional training methods. And this training can be accessed from any platform. So whether it is iOS, Android, or even Windows desktop. And one of the most important things that we also want to transcend here today is this is also a management tool. So it's the management tool that creates the content, it's the management tool that shares that content, and then there's the analytics to make sure that you know that the people are actually ingesting that content from a successful perspective. And all this is wrapped around with real-time content delivery. So some of the features of the ARC Elections platform is we want to break this down into kind of 2 essential areas. One is the Elections Worker app. This is the UI that the workers will see. And then second is the management dashboard. So as I said earlier, you do have this available as a mobile app or a desktop application, and it can be used in conjunction with both. But second is you'll see is the self-registration. As you're onboarding a significant amount of people, and in this case for Elections Saskatchewan, they can self-register. They can register onto the application to the specific role that they are going to be doing for the election. So whether they're an information officer, a returning officer, polling clerk, etc., they have that ability. And once they're within the app, it is role-based training based on what they've registered for. So they'll be able to ingest that content and do a lot of the exercises and scenarios to test them on that particular topic. And the content that is shared with these individuals, there's a number of different mediums that they can ingest this content. One is simply text. There's images, videos. Within Elections Saskatchewan, they have a number of different videos that they can use as a training platform. We can place that within the application itself. And last is documents. This actually can be a document repository for training manuals, etc. So that can be with the worker at all times. And the other feature of the application is the communication piece. So there's push notifications that can come from management to update any of the individuals or by roles of any instant news that is on the day or even prior. The other is the news feed. So as you go into the app from the elections workers perspective, the first thing they see is the news feed. So there's a number of different articles that can be generated, and this is all done through the management dashboard. And lastly is forums. So if someone is, it's either a day before, days before, even days of the election, they can start a forum chat just to answer any type of questions that they may have. And then within the management dashboard, as I said earlier, this is where the content and the training is created. So this is the lifeblood of the system that Klaus and his team has created. But more importantly, too, is the analytics portion of this. As you have people, your workers, going through the process of learning, you want to make sure that they are actually doing it. Have they registered? How much time are they spending on the content? Have they successfully completed the training? So things like this is really brought back forth from the analytics portion, and we'll show that here today. So if you can advance the slide. So the benefits of our collection, really, first and foremost, is the knowledge retention. Is as they may go through the classroom setting, or possibly not, the retention is there with your election workers, because the content is always with your people, and communication can be updated and directed at any time, and that's the same thing for content. This is something where the management and the operations of the elections jurisdiction can manage that. That's not ARC managed, it is managed by the jurisdiction. So if you remember from the slide before, was the value delivered? Well, with the analytics that is embedded within this system, you'll be able to answer that question, was that value delivered from a positive perspective? So with that stated, we want to kind of direct this into the demo of the user interface and the dashboard. So I'll let Sahil take this over. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And so as he said, we'll move over to the demo side of the application. And as Mike mentioned, there are two sides to this, really. There's the elections worker side, which I'm about to show you. I'll log in right here. And then there's the management dashboard side, which is more for administration. And I will show you that afterwards. But the first point that Mike touched upon was that this platform that we've created is both desktop and mobile device compatible. I just wanted to show you that quickly. This is what it could potentially look like on the desktop. And I also was able to render it on an iPhone. And this is how it would show up on, say, a mobile device or even an iPad. It could show up something like this. And as you can see, this is actually Election Saskatchewan's app. They called it Take Part. And we just wanted to thank them for letting us use this app for demo purposes. And as you go through this, you'll see that a lot of the content inside is related to Election Saskatchewan. But obviously, this platform can be used for any election. So right off the bat here, we have the ability to register for the app itself. If you are a new elections worker and you want to register for the app, all you have to do is click register, enter all of your information, and then click register at the bottom here, and you'll be registered for the app. We can also do bulk registration through the dashboard if necessary. Those two options are available to you. But once that's all done, we can log into the app, and I'll show you some of the features. So let's get right into it. So this is the home screen of the elections platform. You see there are a couple buttons at the top and bottom that I will explain in a second here. But when we first enter the app, what you'll see right at the beginning is the news feed, as Mike mentioned before. And this is where all of the news items that administration has created will be displayed and sent out to elections workers. Now, these news items, they can be virtually anything. They can be just regular updates or news that you want to send to your elections workers. They can even be memos notifying your elections workers that they have new training materials available. And so, for example, here we have a news item about by-elections in Saskatchewan for 3 constituencies. And so this is just a regular piece of news here. You can have text, you can add images, videos, documents, links, whatever you want. And I'll show you how to create those in the dashboard afterwards. That would be one type. Here's the second type. In this case, this is a news item that notifies the user that there's some new content for them to consume. And so they can click those buttons and it would take them to that content. So besides the news feed, we have some other buttons here. We have the training section of the app. And so this is where all of the training materials, with both the tests and scenarios, show up for the elections workers. The way the training works in our platform is there are two main types, I would say. There's tests, which are straightforward questions based on some sort of learning content that we provide the elections worker. And then there are scenarios. Now, scenarios, the way I think of them, is they are like little stories that are based on the learning content. And they're designed to mimic those real-world experiences that elections workers would go through. And they're branching because, as we all know, a lot of those situations that elections workers can get into can really go one way or another, depending on how they respond to them. And so I'll show you both of those types of training in a second. Next, we have the account section. So this is just your basic account and profile settings here. So you can see my name and everything, all the roles that I'm a part of, as well as groups. We also have a support team with this app. So if at any point an elections worker is having trouble with the app, maybe there's a technical issue, they can reach out to our support team and we'll be able to help them with that. Next, we have a mastery section. Think of this as like a slice of analytics for the elections worker, their own progress report, if you will. And so this view will show them their pass and fail ratio with all of the training materials, as well as their overall score, meaning the number of courses that they completed and passed in the app itself. And then finally, at the bottom here, we have two more buttons. As Mike mentioned before, we have a document section. If you want to have your elections workers have any important documents on hand. And so in this case, for Elections Saskatchewan, what they wanted to have on hand was a poll officials manual. So I can go ahead and click that, and that will open up in a different window. There's another document here. It seems to be a types of ID or acceptable ID document. And again, that's the document section. It can be really any types of documents in there. Oh, we actually have a question on that from the audience. Is PDF the only document type that you can save on the platform? Sorry, as I just said, it can be any type of document. It could be a PDF, a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet even. Whatever you want to throw at your elections workers in the document section, you can. And then finally, we get to the forums. And this is where the elections workers can interact not only with other elections workers, but also with administration or management. And so the way the forum works is there are separate threads that are created. And within these threads, people can start new conversations. And so we have a couple here. We have one for preparing for election day. You can even create forums for specific roles, such as returning officers and poll clerks. Say I go into this one over here, you can see that I asked a question about returning officer procedures. So let's go to that thread specifically. And so I asked my question. My question was, is there an elections worker guide I can look at to answer my question? Thank you. And then as I was acting in administration in the back end, I was able to reply and say, yes, the elections worker guide is located in the document section of the app as a PDF, as we just saw momentarily ago. So yeah, those are pretty important because we see this platform not only as a training app, but also as a pretty powerful communications platform. And so that's the main screen. Now I'm going to go into the training section here because that's probably the meat and the potatoes of the app itself. That's where a lot of the work will go into. And the way we structure materials, training materials in our app is first we have higher categories, overarching categories. In this case, Election Saskatchewan had 5 that they wanted to create: understanding elections process, voter ID, absentee voting, and so on and so forth. And then within each of those categories, we have the individual courses themselves. So maybe if I click on who can vote in voter ID, we actually have 3 courses here for the elections workers to take. One on voter ID, one on voter eligibility, and one on registration and declaration forms. So I'm going to take you first through just a regular course, and then I'll take you through a scenario. Let's do the voter ID course here. And so the way both courses and scenarios are structured is at the beginning, there's some learning content for the elections workers to consume. In this case, we have some text as well as an image about acceptable ID. So we have some options here, and then we have a driver's license from Saskatchewan. And the idea is that the elections worker will consume this content, and it doesn't have to be just images and text. It can also be videos, documents, other links, whatever you want here. And so once they consume all of this, they can click start at the bottom, and it'll take them right into the course. So I'm going to go ahead and start this course. And when you start it, you see that you have a series of questions that you have to answer. In this case, we have 3 questions to answer, and they're all based on voter ID and acceptable identification. Now, these questions can be anything. They can be multiple choice, true or false. In this case, we have a fill in the blanks. We can even do specific text or numeric text and open text. So maybe if you want your workers to type in their own answer, they can do that as well. But in this case, the first question is a fill in the blanks. A voter may present 2 pieces of ID, provided that both pieces have the voter's blank and at least one has their blank. And I know the answer to this question because I consumed the content. I know it has to be name and residential address. So I'll go ahead and submit that. Now I got that question correct, as you can see here by the check mark. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on to the next question. Question 2 looks to be like a multiple choice. Which of the following would suffice as 1 piece of ID in order for a voter to receive their ballot? Now I know a driver's license and a photo ID card are both good, but not a passport, so I'm going to choose that last option over there. And I get that correct. And then the final question here is a true or false. Voters may show 1 piece of ID prior to receiving a ballot, provided it has their name, address, and photo. And I'm going to say this is true. So I'll go ahead and submit that. And it looks like I got that correct. So now that I'm done the course, I'll click continue. I've gotten all of the questions correct here. And because I got 3 out of 3 and I passed the course minimum of 100%, I've completed the course, and now I can back out and do some other courses. Now, you don't have to make it so that they require 100% in order to pass. You can always configure that in the dashboard, and I can show you how to do that afterwards. But since we're done, I'll click done, and I will back out. We have a question from someone in the audience. The question is, what role are you testing for in this demo? Very good question. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. In this case, these courses are the ones for the returning officer. And so this goes back to what Mike was saying about role-based training. Because the user account that I'm using is in the returning officer role, I'm seeing the specific courses that the returning officer is supposed to take. But say if I logged in with maybe an information officer role, I would see different courses. Again, you want to show the applicable kind of content and courses to those specific elections role. Great question, thank you. So now that we've done a course, I want to show you quickly a scenario. So let's go into the scenario section here, and maybe we'll try scenario 3. And again, going back to what I said, scenarios are like little stories. They're designed to mimic those real world situations that elections workers will find themselves in. In this case, Scenario 3 will test you on different voting opportunities. Now you can see here that there's no learning content. You could very well add some learning content, but the way Elections Saskatchewan designed these scenarios is they wanted the elections workers to first test and learn their knowledge through regular courses, and then be able to practice what they have learned in these scenarios. So I'll go ahead and continue, and we'll get right into this scenario. First question is, Bob is the deputy returning officer in an advanced poll, but is offered to act as a spare. What should you schedule him for? I should probably say that he shouldn't be sent out. And it looks like I've got that one correct. Now, there could be more than one correct answer. That's configurable in the dashboard as well. And you can assign different values to the answers. So maybe there are answers that are more correct than others. An advanced poll worker calls in sick. Luckily, you have a spare worker. Can you send them in? I think that's probably a good yes. Continue from there. On elections day at the returning office, you receive a call from a regular poll that they need a DRO to work. You have a spare train to work, but at a personal care facility. Can you send them in? Probably going to say no. And I got that one correct. A hospital has hospital beds as well as long-term care beds. What kind of voting team needs to be sent to the facility? I'm going to say both a hospital and PCF voting team. I got that one correct too. It looks like this is the final question. A hospital has hospital beds as well as long-term care beds, but what kind of voting team needs to be sent to the facility in the event of a by-election? That's different. I'm going to say personal care facility, and it looks like I got that wrong. Now, this is a great opportunity to show your elections workers extra information for them to remember. So I'm going to continue here, and you can see that there were some tips that were offered for some of the questions. Now, you can have tips for both correct and incorrect answers. Again, you want to provide your elections workers with the most information as possible. So I'm going to continue. Unfortunately, I didn't pass this course, and so I have to try it again. That's fine. I can go back into the training materials and relearn what I have to do in order to pass that scenario. We have a question from the audience here. Can users or Elections Saskatchewan administrators change questions in tests and scenarios, or does ARC have to make applications changes? Very good question. And as Mike said before, we give you the power to do all of this. We give you the ability in our dashboard to go back and change the questions, whether that be the questions themselves or the answers, or even the entire structure of the materials themselves. We give you that power. And that's a great segue actually, because we're going to go straight into the dashboard now. So let me switch over here. This is the management dashboard. I'll go ahead and log in. And when you first enter, you have this view of the domain analytics. Now, the way we work with the dashboard is we set up what we call a domain for your organization. So think of your domain as your own section of our dashboard. And in that section, you'll do all of the content creation, all of the role setup, the user setup, and the analytics management. And so in this case, I'm working in the Elections Saskatchewan domain. And so all of the content and the users and the groups, everything is from their specific app that I'm about to show you. First, I'll get to this sidebar here. These are all the tools that are available to you in the dashboard. You have learning management, you have user management, communications management, and analytics, which is very important and which I'll get to afterwards. Let's start with communications management. This is where you can manage your news and your forums. So as you can see here, we have the ability to manage the news items. These are some of the ones you saw in the app side. You can always add or edit new ones. What we have within our dashboard is a what you see is what you get editor over here. So you can add any HTML, images, text, documents, videos, whatever you want here as a news item. Then we give you the ability to send that to whatever audience you want to send it to, whether that be role-based or everyone in this case. We also allow you to push that news item as a notification. So if you want to enable it as a push and make sure that they get that notification on their device, you can do that there. And once you save it, it's sent out to everyone and it's available over here in their newsfeed. That's the news. We have forums as well. This is where you would manage, as you saw in the app side, the forums and the threads. So if you recall from before, we had questions about returning officer procedures, the one I submitted in the elections worker side, and I was able to reply from this end again with one of these editors. Very, very handy. We have another question. Who has access or should be using the dashboard? And so what we do with the dashboard is we give access, administrative access, to the management team or whoever is going to be doing administration for your organization when it comes to the app. The actual elections workers, they're registered within the app itself, but they don't have access to this dashboard because they're not part of administration. And we're able to toggle that in this dashboard. So now let's move to the actual learning content because I'm sure you want to see how that's created. If you recall, in our app, we have these overarching categories, and you can create those over here just by adding new material categories. And once those are created, you can start creating your training materials as well as editing existing ones. This is the view of all of the training materials in the app. And so if we go down to the course that I did, voter ID, and I want to edit this, for example, I can go ahead and click on it, and it brings up everything about this course. The title, the category within it is housed in the app, a description of the app, sorry, not the app, of the course itself. You can also set prerequisites, so maybe you want to gate this training and make it so that they have to do previous courses before they can do this one. Then you can also choose the material type. Do you want this to be regular training? Do you want it to be reinforcement, where you want them to do it over and over again? That's all possible here. And once that is done, you can add your learning content. So in this case, if you recall from the course itself, we had some text and a driver's license. That's all editable in this editor here. You can also add individual learning assets in the forms of images, audio, documents, videos, and links. And once all of that's added, you can then move on to your exercises. And so this is where you create primarily either your questions or your scenarios. In this case, this is a test, so they're just questions. So I've chosen questions there. You can then add your exercises. So if you recall in this one specifically, there were 3 questions. And say if I wanted to edit one of those, all I would have to do was click on it. And I can edit everything about this question, the actual question itself. I can change the answer types. If you recall, we can do multiple choice, true or false. We have even file upload if you want your workers to upload their answers using a file. And then we move down to the answers. So if you want to modify your answers, if you want to toggle which ones are correct or incorrect, you can do all of that over here. Similar to how the regular tests are set up, you can also set up scenarios. And so I'll go to the scenario section. I believe it's up here. And so we did scenario 3. Again, you set up the general structure of the scenario, the content if you want. Then you get straight to the exercises. So in this case, we have one scenario with 5 questions, if you recall. We actually provide you with a question map that shows you how the scenario branches out. Because again, if you want to be able to mimic those real world situations and show how the options change based on how you answer them, it's very important to be able to visualize that. And so we show you, oh, this question is branching off of this question. Or you can even have it where questions are branching off individual answers based on how they answered. So again, very, very handy. So now you've created all of your courses and scenarios. That's all fine and well, but you want to see how your workers are doing. So we get into the analytics side. Now we break analytics into 3 sections in our dashboard. There's domain analytics, the general analytics of your domain itself. So you can see the number of sessions, user sessions, and the number of scenarios and courses that have been completed over a certain amount of time. We also have material analytics. So in this case, these are the analytics broken down by the particular course. For example, you can see for voter ID, there was 1 person who completed it, which was me. I just did it now. And you can go in, you can see the number of people who passed it and failed it over this time period, the number of incompletes, who passed it, and the latest attempts. You can also break it down further by clicking on the numbers over here. So you can see who passed and who failed. You can see what your users trended towards. So in this case, for this first question, it seems like 21 people chose true, while only 3 chose false. Again, very useful. You can also back out and slice it and dice it based on grouping. So in this case, these are the material analytics for everyone in the app. You can also break it down by things like roles or groups. For example, if I choose roles, I can maybe filter by returning officer and search. And now you see, seems like there are less courses and no one has taken it in this case for the returning officer. And then finally, we can break analytics down by user. And so the perfect example is, this is my user account. You can see my name there. You can see that the last course I did was voter ID. And so if I go straight into that, I can see all of my user analytics. I can see the last attempts, both passed and failed, what courses I did, and the kinds of grades I got for each of those courses. And if you really want to break it down to an individual user, and you see that that elections worker is struggling with something, you can go straight into their individual attempts and see what they're trending towards. Do they pick a particular answer for a question? Do they fail a particular question? All of that is available in the user side of analytics. One thing I didn't mention with analytics is they can also be broken down by groups. Now, groups can be managed in user management. And the way Elections Saskatchewan set up their groups is they had many constituencies, I believe 60, 63 or so. And so they wanted to see their analytics broken down by constituency, meaning how their elections workers are doing for each of their constituencies. In this case, we had about 63 of them. And so we uploaded all of those constituencies here. And you can go into those groups and see how they're doing based on the learning content and compare them to other groups as well. And that would be done again through material analytics. Again, very useful. So that concludes the dashboard side of the app for now. I just want to thank Elections Saskatchewan again for letting us use their platform for the demo. They were very excited to partake in this project with us. We were excited to do this with them, and I really appreciate them allowing us to use it. Now, if there's nothing else, I think we'll move on to question period. And I just wanted to thank all of you for attending this webinar. And yeah, we'll open the floor for questions. And just a note, you can unmute your microphones now if you wanted to, and we'll be able to listen in. You can also send questions via chat, and I'll be able to answer them. We have a question from the audience. Can the grouping in the analytics be divided by polling stations? Very good question. Yeah, absolutely. The way Election Saskatchewan did it is they wanted to break their analytics down by the constituencies. So they created those groups for constituencies. But if you wanted to group by polling stations, all you would have to do is go into manage groups, and then you would add your user groups as polling stations instead of constituencies. Hope that makes sense.
Hi, it's Mike here. Does anybody else have any questions or comments about the elections platform? Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for their time again today. Like I said earlier, we just wanted to transcend the knowledge of this platform. What we will do is have a tape session of the webinar posted on YouTube in the coming weeks. So if you need to refer back to anything from what Sahil has demoed, it will be there as well. And we will go from there. So if there's anything else, Sahil, if you could just flash up our emails within the presentation.
Sure. One sec.
Yeah, so if there's any additional questions, our email addresses are there. Myself, Sahil, and Klaus, who created the system with his team. Please feel free to reach out to us. More than happy to answer any questions that you may have. We're excited about this system just because we've seen, obviously, a niche in the marketplace. But please ask any questions after the webinar is over. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it.